Your problem isn't that you haven't written your SOPs. Your problem is that the whole job lives in your head and in two guys who might quit next month. That is the actual situation. Every approval runs through you. Every "how do we do this" runs through you. New hire shows up on Monday and the training plan is whoever's got time to babysit them. Here's what that costs. Rework eats 5 to 10% of your total project cost. Miscommunication alone drives 26% of that rework. Firms with weak processes hit 21% more avoidable rework than firms that have things written down. Turnover in the field runs 14 to 15% a year. You're reteaching the same job every 12 months because nothing is documented. That's not a bad luck problem. That's a no system problem. Here's what we're covering today. 1. Why writing more documents is not the fix and what is. 2. The VSA model that builds your system while doing your work. 3. The 5 specific SOPs every construction company needs, with exactly how you'd build each one yourself if you want to. Stick around, this is 12 minutes and it's worth it. I'm Kevin, I work with Sulum. Let's talk about what this actually costs. The labor situation isn't improving. The industry needs around 349,000 net new workers in 2026. 92% of firms are already struggling to fill roles. You're not finding experienced people, you're finding people who need training. When nothing is documented, every new hire learns by shadowing, which means one of your best guys is babysitting instead of building. If the new hire doesn't stick after 45 days, you start over. 46% of contractors added headcount in 2025 and saw zero net growth. They hired people and still didn't grow. Turnover burned them faster than hiring helped. There's a financial version of this too. Firms with strong processes are 25 to 28% more likely to clear 3% or better on margins. That's not a marginal difference. On a $1 million project, that's $30,000 that either goes in your pocket or disappears into rework and reteaching. The owners who struggle hardest all share one thing. The business depends on them showing up. That's not a badge, that's the cage. Now, here's where most content about this gets it wrong. Everyone tells you to write an SOP binder. Nobody tells you those binders die in a drawer the day after you make them. Your project manager glances at it once and then calls you anyway because it doesn't match how you actually do the job. Writing more documents is not the fix. The fix is a documented process somebody else actually runs. There's a difference. A document is a file. A system is a file plus someone accountable for executing it every week without your involvement. The business owners who break that pattern aren't the ones who worked harder. They're the ones who stopped being the only person who knew how the job worked. If you're curious whether a VSA fits your business, the link's in the description. It's just a conversation. The person who actually fixes this has a name, a VSA, a virtual systems architect. Not a regular virtual assistant, not a task taker who waits for you to assign work. Something different. Here's how it works. Record-and-Delegate. You record yourself doing a job once, on video. The VSA takes that recording, turns it into a word-for-word procedure with screenshots and steps, and then the VSA runs it. They don't hand the document back and wait. They own it going forward. A regular virtual assistant does what you hand them. A VSA builds the system and runs it so you don't have to. A Chicago area site contractor, concrete and asphalt and excavation, 11 to 50 employees, ran Sulum VSAs for 6 years, 4 rotations, government contract work, highly custom, every job different. You know what objection they had at the start? Our work is too custom to systematize. You know what's true? Every custom job still has the same parts. Quoting, scheduling, change orders, billing, closeout. Those don't change just because the project is unique. The VSA documented their actual process and ran it. 6 years and 4 rotations later, the system was still running. Sulum VSAs have been placed in 40-plus industries, 97% retention, 98% client retention after 12 months, roughly half the cost of an in-house hire. The average client reclaims 20 to 30 hours a week. Now let's talk about the 5 systems worth building first. The estimating process is usually the first place tribal knowledge kills you. One estimator has their system, another one has theirs. Neither one is written down. You switch estimators and your margins move for reasons nobody can explain. Here's how to build an estimating and bidding playbook yourself. You'd use a spreadsheet for takeoffs with a locked markup formula, a bid checklist is a Google Doc, and a shared folder per job. Build time is a weekend to document your markup rules and an evening to build the checklist from a recent job. Weekly upkeep is 2 to 3 hours, reviewing open bids, updating win and loss tracking, cleaning the folder. The friction is your estimators. If they've been doing it their way for years, they'll push back. You'll spend a month on buy-in before you get consistent output. That is doable. The question is whether you want to be the one running it every week. A VA builds the template from your recordings, standardizes the folder, maintains the bid log, and manages follow-up on sent bids. You review the final number before it goes out. That's it. This one is where a lot of money gets lost quietly. Sales closes the job. The field shows up Monday and learns what was sold by asking around. Your project manager spends the first 3 days untangling what the customer actually expects versus what your foreman thinks he's building. That gap costs rework, and it costs customer trust. Here's the DIY version. Build a kickoff template in Google Docs or Notion. Scope, materials confirmed, customer contact, access logistics, subcontractor schedule, and the top 3 change order risks on this job. Pair it with a 1-hour handoff meeting before work starts. Build time is a few hours. Weekly upkeep is filling out a new form per job and scheduling the meeting. The friction is getting the meeting to actually happen. Someone will skip it on a small job and you'll feel it on week 3. That is doable. The question is whether you want to be the one running it every week. A VA maintains the kickoff template, preps the document for each new job from the sales notes, schedules the handoff meeting, and follows up on any open items after it. If what we've been talking about sounds like your situation, there's a link in the description to book a free call with my team. No pitch. We just talk about your business, what's not working, and whether a VA is actually the right fit. If it's not, we'll tell you that too. Most margin bleed in construction isn't from bad bids. It's from change orders that don't get captured, priced, or approved before the work proceeds. Your crew does the work because the customer asked for it. You invoice for it later, and the customer disputes it because nobody signed anything. That conversation is painful, and you've probably had it more than once. Here's how to build the change order procedure yourself. A numbered change order form in Google Docs or your estimating software. A log tracking every open change order by project, date, amount, and approval status. The rule: nothing proceeds without a signed change order. Build time is an afternoon. Weekly upkeep is reviewing the log, usually 30 minutes. The friction is getting your crew to stop before they do the work. The impulse is to keep moving and sort it out later. Breaking that habit takes about 90 days. That is doable. The question is whether you want to be the one running it every week. A VA maintains the change order log, sends the form to the customer when your PM identifies a scope change, follows up until it's signed, and flags you only when something is stuck or over a dollar threshold you set. You're not out of the loop. You're just only in the loop when it matters. The field-to-office communication problem is almost always the same. The field doesn't report until something breaks. By the time you know about the issue, it's been a problem for 2 days. Daily field reporting fixes that. An RFI process fixes the specific case where work is blocked waiting on information. Together, they're how you run the job from the office without guessing. Here's the DIY version. A daily report form with 4 fields: work completed, crew count, materials used, and any issues or blockers submitted by the foreman each day before they leave site through a Google form that logs to a sheet. A separate RFI log for information requests with a responsible party and a due date on each one. Build time is an afternoon for the forms. Weekly upkeep is reviewing the daily log and the RFI tracker, probably 2 hours a week. The friction is foremen who've never filed daily reports and don't see the point. Expect resistance for the first 30 days. That is doable. The question is whether you want to be the one running it every week. A VSA monitors the daily report submissions, flags missed days, tracks open RFI items, sends reminders, and escalates anything that's been sitting more than 48 hours. You see a clean summary, not a pile of raw field notes. This one is where cash slows down. The job is 95% done. The final 5% stretches into weeks because nobody owns the punch list and nobody's pushing for the final invoice. The longer closeout drags, the more cash is tied up, and the more customer patience runs out, which turns into a bad review or a dispute on the retainage. Here's the DIY version: a closeout checklist for every project, final walk items noted and assigned, warranty documents collected and filed, final invoice issued within a set number of days of substantial completion, and a customer satisfaction check at close. Use a shared Google Sheet per project with a column for responsible party and status on each item. Build time is a couple of hours to document your actual closeout steps from a recent completed job. Weekly upkeep is reviewing open items on every job within 30 days of scheduled completion. The friction is that closeout always feels less urgent than the active work. It's easy to let it sit. That is doable. The question is whether you want to be the one running it every week. A VSA manages the closeout tracker, sends the punch list to the responsible party, follows up until each item is closed, and triggers the final invoice on schedule. Cash gets collected faster. Warranty documents don't fall into a folder nobody checks. Here's the honest summary. You could build all 5 of these yourself. They're not complicated. A weekend for templates, 90 days to get your team trained on them, a few hours a week to run each one. That's doable. The question is never, can I build this? The question is, who's running it in month 4 when the work gets busy, the system gets skipped for a week, and nobody's maintaining the log? That's where most contractors land. They build the system, and then they're back to being the system themselves. A VSA documents your processes while doing the work, not as a side project, while doing the actual job. That's the model. Sulum has placed VSAs across 40-plus industries, including contractors who said their work was too custom to systematize. Roughly half the cost of an in-house hire, 97% VSA retention. The people we place don't just write procedures and hand them back, they run them. If you're at the point where you know something has to change, book a call. It's free. You talk to someone on my team, not a bot, not a form. You tell them what's going on in your business. They'll be straight with you about whether a VSA makes sense for where you are right now. If it does, you'll hear what that looks like and what it costs. If it doesn't, you'll know that too, and you're not out anything. The link's in the description. Just book it. And if this was useful, hit subscribe. We put out one of these every week. I'm Kevin. We'll see you in the next one.